So in the first paragraph, I highlighted Salvador's, whose name the teacher cannot remember, is a boy who is no one's friend. So he's like really lonely, I guess, and he doesn't really speak out for himself.
Yeah, I said that too. I said is a boy who's no one's friend because he's lonely and he isn't really popular.
He's not someone who would go and he's not someone who would go to a group of people and say, hey, can I go with you, want to go do this? You know, he seems like someone who's more into his
like an introvert.
Bubble. Yeah, he's very introverted.
And also, I highlighted this whole paragraph. I said, Salvador inside the wrinkled shirt, inside that 40-pound body of a boy with the geography of scars, its history of hurt limbs, stuffed with feathers and rags, and in what part of his eyes and what part of his heart, in his cage of the chest where something throbs, with both fists and nose, and only what Salvador knows. Inside the body too small to contain 100 balloons of happiness, the single guitar of grief, the boy that, like any other, disappearing out of the door besides the schoolyard gate, which he has told his brothers must wait. So I highlighted the whole thing because it really explains how he has a huge history of hurt in a sense, and yeah.
Yeah, that's what I highlighted too.
I mean, it's worth highlighting everything in that paragraph because there's a lot of imagery. Because crooked hair and crooked teeth, you can kind of gives you a picture in your head, so you can kind of get something of what you can figure out kind of what he looks like easier than not well put together or something.
Also, this is one of my questions that I made. This is a very first question. Do you think Salvador is anorexic? Because that's kind of what I've gathered, since it says 40-pound body of a boy, and in order to have a good age to actually be able to know how to help your parents and your siblings, for me, is maybe 9 to 10. If you're 40 pounds and you're 9 to 10, that's pretty skinny, I would think.
That or he's really poor. So
or he's doesn't have enough food to eat.
Yeah. So he may be anorexic, but it's not really his choice, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's not anorexic then. That's just.
I know.
But then I think I agree with Olivia when it says. I think when she says that he's anorexic, because when someone's no one's friend, that might cause depression, which can cause anorexia. And he's 40 pounds, and anyone who's taking care of their brothers is usually probably around our age. Is
the youngest I would think would be 9 to 10,
but
still
depending on
40
how pounds. I think I was 70 pounds at least.
Same. I was I don't remember, something around that. When I was 10, I think I was 65. So
really? Okay, but anyways.
Wow, Emma.
Wait, no, I was 70 pounds. But something
I think he could be anorexic, it makes sense, but he could also just be not very well taken care of and not very wealthy, so he can't really find food. So
yeah. Well, it says stuff this could help, but never mind, it doesn't really help with my point. I was gonna say that he helped with his mom and playing with crayons. I mean, if he has enough money to afford crayons, food should come first. But
it's a cigar.
Yeah, but then I realized, then I saw that and I was oh, maybe not.
Yeah, I guess if crayons are kind of a needed thing for school, so maybe that they really are poor, so the school might have gave them the crayons and they had to have a cigar box.
And then for the next question in the second reading, will Salvador be a responsible adult? And then I said yes, he takes very good care of his brothers and he helps his mother.
I think anyone who's taking care of their siblings they're gonna know as an adult how to take care of children, and they are going to be for sure a responsible adult.
And one of my reading questions was, why do you think the author chose to write Salvador late or early in a poetic form?
I think it kind of it makes you think a little bit, and it like has a deeper meaning if it's in like a poem.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what I like.
I think it keeps the reader interested when they have poetry of some sort, you know, because oftentimes just words or like a story with that's not poetic can just seem it's just words.
Like
But
dull.
yeah, it can be dull, and poetry kind of makes the story vibrant or more interesting.
But also the thing with poetry is it's really hard to kind of decode it sometimes depending on how the author decided to write it. Like for this one, you can't really tell like if he's anorexic or if he's poor, and it's kind of if he's depressed. He could just have scars from just in the woods or something. I don't know. It could be from anything, but since it's written in that poetic form, it's harder to find and pick out those pieces to get more information, I think, because it's not so clear. You have to infer.
I think that's a good thing though, because it's always good for them to have something where you don't understand what's going on, so you can guess what's happening. So then it's not all just a given in a story. Like, okay, if they just said Salvador is poor and anorexic, it wouldn't make it interesting. Since they use imagery, it keeps you interested in the story, and yet you still have to think more about it than them just telling you exactly what's happening.
I agree with that, but also you don't have to necessarily write in a poetic form for it to be imagery. That's just my personal opinion. I've read a lot of actual books that were very imagery related, but they weren't really written in a poetic form.
Yeah, and I'm not saying poetry is the only thing with imagery, but it seems like after I've read a lot of poetry, it's oftentimes poetry does have a lot of imagery, but poetry just seems to work for the story.
Okay, and then this is one of my questions, and I didn't really understand it. Like poetry is a little bit harder to figure out. But at the end, do you think he's running away from school, or getting let out of school, or what do you think's happening at the end?
I have that exact same question
So
actually.
the end says, collects the hands of Cecilio and Arturo.
I think
Scuttles
that's
off,
his
dodging the
siblings.
many schoolyard colors, the elbows and wrists crisscrossing, the several shoes running, grows small and smaller to the eye, dissolves into the bright horizon, flutters in the air before disappearing like a memory of kites.
I think they're going into school.
Yeah, I feel like they're going into school.
Yeah, I
not
think
running.
they finally got into a public school or something.
Like they're finally going to school. I feel like, it says, now that you mention it,
Because
says,
their old life is disappearing into a memory of kites.
and he's it's almost like he's fluttering away like a butterfly now that he has gotten.
And then if you read from the second paragraph, he's helping them get ready, helping his mother get everyone ready, and then
Also,
his brother drops the
Salvador means, I'm pretty sure it's hope. Oh, I can't remember the exact.
It said savior.
Savior, yeah. And in French and Latin, or is it Spanish?
It's Spanish and Latin.
Spanish and Latin.
Yeah.
And so basically, I think he was kind of the savior for his family, basically helping his siblings and his mother, and finally going to school at the end of the story.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
Yeah, now that I look at it, it seems like they're so, how on your first day of, say, middle school, how you're kind of a mess, you're like, do I look good, am I ready, you kind of were a mess that morning. I think maybe it is their first day of school, because they seem to be a bit scrambling, he drops his crayons, his brothers are still asleep, they haven't gotten up just yet, so my guess is that it is their first day at school.
And it says beyond the asphalt puddles, which means it's probably hot out still.
Yeah. And then, how do you think the story would sound? I know we kind of already discussed this a little bit, but we said we kind of went in a different direction. how do you think the story would sound if it was written in a standard form? Like, would you think it would be more straightforward or still use imagery? Because we kind of discussed this a little bit.
I think it might be like a little more straightforward because then it would like not really make sense if they were saying that, and then you would like understand it better.
See, on the other hand, I said this before, but it is important that they don't. It keeps you interested in the story if they have imagery. It's more interesting when they say he has crooked teeth and crooked hair than saying he's not totally kept together well. You know, it keeps.
Although they could keep the imagery.
Yeah, they could have done a little less imagery though.
I feel
kind of
like
makes it confusing.
Yeah, I had to read it like 5 times to actually get the story.